Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's dive into the world of corporate red tape with a tale about navigating HR bureaucracy without outright defiance. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with a turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. How to stop a corporate process. Death by workshop. Some years ago, I was working for a large corporation. One of the responsibilities of the team I was on was to offer on-the-job training for employees and managers on a number of topics that are not important here. The point is, we took our job seriously and tried to do the best work we could. Among other things, that meant changing the training topics and content on a regular basis to make sure it was up to date with industry standards and what our colleagues actually needed to know. At some point, we were approached by corporate HR. Apparently, our trainings were bypassing most of the central controlling and approval processes, which was creating issues for them. I can understand that. However, these processes were awful. Slow, unnecessary, bureaucratic, and HR showed no interest in improving them. There was no way we could follow them without sacrificing our quality standards. I could have outright refused to follow them and created a massive conflict, but there was a better way. We set up a workshop with HR to make sure we understood the processes we needed to follow, in detail. Over several exhausting hours, we mapped out every single step that needed to be done by anyone along every step of the way. Flip charts with scribbles and diagrams quickly filled up every square foot of available wall. At the end of a long and exhausting afternoon for everyone involved, I pointed out that we now had a full picture of what needed to be done. Good work, everyone. But we still needed to align on next steps. How would we get there? It was at this point that the HR manager in the room asked whether we could postpone that topic for the follow-up workshop, as everyone seemed to be very tired. Of course, we agreed. Funnily enough, that follow-up workshop never happened. Whenever the topic came up, everyone was quick to state how busy they were at the moment, and could we delay for a few more weeks. A year or two later, our training program had to end for an entirely unrelated reason, so it didn't matter anymore. So if you ever need to refuse to do something in corporate world, don't say you won't do it, accept it, and make sure it slows to an excruciating crawl. Flip charts with scribbles and diagrams quickly filled up every square foot of available wall. I can only imagine the HR person staring at that behemoth and realizing they were in too deep for any tactic but stall the follow-up as long as you can to provide a way out. And our second story. How I billed them $2,000 in back pay. Karen and Ken are wealthy and extremely stingy. Their kid's Bob. Henry's an extremely sweet, generous single dad who lost his husband a few years ago and dotes on his kid, Steve. I've been a nanny for several years now, and for the most part, I've worked with lovely, reasonable families. I have contracts for every family that guarantees the hours that I work, meaning if a family goes on vacation, I still get paid because I'm technically available to work, but they choose not to use my services. Think gym membership where you pay regardless of whether you've been to the gym in a month? This is standard on nanny contracts. Another bit on my contract is called the nanny share. So if two of the families want to combine for the day, each of them pays 2/3 of my regular pay rate. I get paid a little more for watching more kids, and they save a little, only paying a portion of what they would have paid. Karen and Ken's family went to Hawaii 3 weeks ago, and per my contract, I was to be paid as usual. Before they left, they asked if I could come in and watch the Bob the Sunday after they returned so that they could recover and rest. I agreed, and my hours were set at 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. that Sunday. They went on the trip, everything was wonderful, and they texted me when they landed saying they'd see me at 8 a.m. The next day, when I was about to head out the door at 7:30 a.m., I received a text saying that Bob were just waking up, so I should just show up at 8:30 instead. After the day of nannying, Karen asked if I would stay past my regular hours during the upcoming week so that they could have 2 date nights. I agreed, and Karen said she would reimburse me for all the extra hours at the end of the week since it'd be easier just to make one payment. Totally fine with me. The week finished, and I ended up staying an extra 8 hours total for the 2 date nights. I asked Ken to pay me for 16 hours, but he said he had to talk to Karen first to double-check hours and would pay me shortly. When I got home, I received a text from Karen saying, "Hi, OP, thank you so much for covering for us these past few weeks. Ken and I are feeling refreshed, and the show was hilarious. Since we were in Hawaii, you were paid for an entire week while you weren't working. We don't think this is quite fair as it's a large sum of money, so we'd like to apply some of those hours to your babysitting today and yesterday. We will pay you for 8 hours instead." I was furious. I screenshotted the part of my contract that plainly stated I would be paid for any hours that their family was on vacation, and I reminded her that it was in violation of contract. She reluctantly agreed, and I texted that it would be a total of 16 hours. Karen instantly replied and went off, texting, "On Sunday, we asked you to come in at 8:30, not 8. We're already being generous and paying you for the holiday we took. We expect you to track your hours better next time. This is unacceptable. You need to be as accurate as possible with the hours that we are paying you. We will pay you for 15.5 hours. Readers, this was a difference of $12.50. I was going to SS the part of my contract that said any rescheduling needed a 24-hour notice, but instead, I went nuclear. Bob has been tagging along with Steve and me to music class and soccer twice a week outside of Karen's regular contracted hours since January. Karen has never offered to pay for those hours, but Henry was fine with paying his full rate for those hours because Steve was having trouble making friends at school and had become close to Bob. I chose not to say anything about the slight bump in pay because I loved watching them play together. Malicious compliance time. As Karen stated, I needed to be as accurate as possible. I calculated all the hours that Bob has joined us since January, 6 hours a week times 18 weeks, and the total amount they owed was almost $2,000. In the group chat with Karen, Ken, and Henry, I said, Karen stated that it was of utmost importance that I track the hours as accurately as possible, so I took it upon myself to double-check everything, including the share hours. Thank goodness I did. I didn't realize we'd forgotten to track all the hours that Bob joined us for soccer and music. Henry, I'm so sorry. Karen actually owes you quite a bit of money. If my calculations are correct, they owe X dollars to you and to me. Henry replied, Karen and Ken, I'm so disappointed to hear that OP hasn't been compensated properly this entire time. I don't need my hours to be refunded for those hours because I wanted Steve to continue his playdates, but you need to pay OP's portion immediately. I got a huge chunk of money I wasn't expecting, and I'm now on the hunt for my next nanny family. I'll be putting my 2 weeks' notice with Karen and Ken as soon as I do. The way you turned their petty demand for accuracy into a full audit of their unpaid hours was nothing short of masterful. And our last story. Karen and the pool she thinks she owns. When my spouse, 45, and I, 46, bought our dream home in February, we were thrilled. The house was perfect, complete with a private pool in the backyard, ideal for relaxing weekends, occasional barbecues, and pool parties with our close friends. It was a single-family home in a non-HOA neighborhood, and we were excited to enjoy our privacy and peace. We quickly learned that peace was not in the cards thanks to our nosy and entitled neighbor, Karen. Shortly after moving in, we were approached by Karen and a small group of other neighbors who seemed pleasant at first. They were friendly enough, but the conversation quickly took an unexpected turn. Karen, the self-appointed spokesperson, asked when they could start using the pool again. Confused, we asked her to explain. Turns out the previous owners had left the pool open to the neighborhood, allowing the local kids and adults to come over whenever they wanted. Apparently, there had even been an arrangement where they all chipped in for pool maintenance. Karen smiled smugly and said, It's a great setup, and I'm sure you'll want to keep it going. We can help with costs, and you won't even notice we're here. I exchanged a look with my spouse and then politely but firmly explained that we valued our privacy and wouldn't be allowing anyone free access to our pool. Karen's smile vanished. Oh, come on, she scoffed. The kids love it. You can't just shut it down like that. We've been using it for years. After that conversation, Karen and her band of entitled neighbors began hounding us every chance they got. Whether we were gardening, walking the dog, or just stepping out to get the mail, someone would corner us and bring up the pool. One afternoon, while I was pruning some bushes in the front yard, Karen marched over with her 2 kids trailing behind her. We're happy to pay the maintenance fees, she chirped, her tone dripping with faux sweetness. You'll barely even notice us. I sighed. Karen, I've told you before, the pool is private. Please respect that. Her smile faltered. I'm asking nicely. You don't have to be so selfish, you know. We're just trying to keep the neighborhood friendly. I didn't have the energy to argue. I excused myself and headed back to the backyard, but Karen and her kids followed me through the gate. Look, I don't understand why you're being so difficult about this, she said, her voice growing shrill. The least you could do is let us use it on weekends. I spun around and pointed to the gate. Karen, get off my property. Now, you're trespassing and I'll call the police if this happens again. Her jaw dropped. She huffed, grabbed her kids, and stormed off, muttering about how rude we were. The next day, we hosted a small gathering with some close friends. As we were enjoying drinks by the pool, one of my friends noticed something odd near the fence. I walked over to investigate and saw Karen's kids peering through the slats, giggling. Moments later, Karen herself appeared, arms crossed and glaring. Must be nice to pick and choose who gets to use the pool, she sneered. I tried to keep my cool. Karen, I've had enough. Leave us alone. You're not welcome here. She didn't move. This is ridiculous. You're alienating the entire neighborhood. Don't be surprised when no one wants to talk to you anymore. My patience snapped. Karen, I'm calling the police if you don't leave right now. Karen must have thought I was bluffing because she didn't budge. So I grabbed my phone and called a non-emergency line. Within 15 minutes, an officer arrived. Karen immediately launched into a tirade claiming we were hoarding community resources. The officer listened patiently, then turned to me. Do you want to press charges for trespassing? He asked. Karen's face went pale. I sighed. No, I just want her to leave and stop harassing us. This is private property. The officer nodded and turned to Karen. Ma'am, if you set foot on their property again, you will be charged with trespassing. Do you understand? Karen sputtered, but it's just a pool. My kids. The officer cut her off. That pool belongs to them, and you have no right to it. This is your final warning. Karen stomped off, dragging her kids behind her, but not before shooting me a death glare. We don't care. Our pool, our rules. And Karen? She can stay in her lane. Preferably far, far away from ours. Wow, Karen really tried to rewrite the rules of reality, huh? Private property means exactly that. Private. Karen can glare all she wants, but she and her kids will just have to make do with a sprinkler in their yard. Let this be a reminder to anyone with overly entitled neighbors. Stay firm, know your rights, and if all else fails, there's always the non-emergency line. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.